Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperspace on the Dark Matter Digital Network. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening, and a special thank you to our master and producer, Keith Rowland. And my special guest this evening is Mary Sutherland. And Mary Sutherland is an author and researcher focusing her work on consciousness studies, ancient history, and unusual phenomena. She is a hands-on researcher and the creator of one of the largest websites on the internet with hundreds of pages providing information on the paranormal, UFOs, ancient races and their cultures, sacred sites and power points of the world, underground tunnels and cave systems, dimensional worlds, metaphysics. And the governor of Kentucky commissioned her as a Kentucky colonel for her work on the ancient sites of Kentucky. For the last 5 years, she has been exploring, mapping, and documenting the ancient water structures of Rock Lake near Aztalan. For the last 14 years, she has been documenting the ancient sites around Burlington, Wisconsin. Truth is her passion. She believes it is through truth that we will break ourselves free of our present entanglements in life. When we become free, we create our own personal story of the hero's journey, suggested by Joseph Campbell. There are rare persons in the world who see things others don't, persons who connect the dots of existence and possess an instinctive talent for linking with kindred souls to reveal otherwise invisible patterns and excavate hidden truths. Such a person is Mary Sutherland. She is a natural-born networker in all she does, from her Burlington Vortex conferences and sci-fi cafe to her public talks and published works and books. Nowhere, however, is her gift for perception more developed than her latest title, and that's per Frank Joseph, editor-in-chief, Ancient American Magazine. You can also purchase Mary's books either at Amazon.com, where autographed copies are available at burlingtonnews.net/books. And please welcome Mary to the show this evening. Hey, Mary.
Wow, that was a mouthful, wasn't it?
It was. It's all awesome, though. It's great to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I am so happy to have you ask me to be on your show because I do follow your work, and we're friends on Facebook as well. So, I already seem to know you.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a star family thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, indeed.
Virtual friendship, circle of friendship.
It's wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you now in real time, and I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy the show tonight. And I want to touch base with you and see what you've been up to the past few months. And, of course, we are going to talk about your book with the Red Hair Giants, but what have you been up to?
Well, we closed the Sci-Fi Cafe down in Burlington. We had it for 10 years, but we, as my husband and myself, but it was 7 days a week. We were pretty well tied down. The only time I got to visit with any friends or researchers is if they came into the cafe. So it finally just came to the point where enough was enough. We got plenty of information out, met a lot of people, made a lot of great friends and that. But I wanted to get back to my research, in the field and start working more on my books. Excellent. So we moved from Burlington, about a 2-hour drive from Burlington to 1 mile inside the Illinois line. But we're still focusing our work on Illinois now as well as Wisconsin. And I still do my tours, the Haunted Wood tours, but I've expanded that now to ancient site tours. So nice. I'm taking people not only to the Haunted Woods of Burlington and the Vortex there, but I'm also taking them to, Aztalan, and so that they can see the ancient ruins of these red-haired giants, taking them to different temple areas. And, so that not only do they have my books, but I can more personalize it now, and I can see them, they can see me. It's more one-on-one, and it's working out really nice.
Oh, that sounds great.
And then I'm taking, my biggest project is, I still do have BUFO radio. And I was there when the internet radio first started. There was myself, Jerry Pippin, Jeff Rentz, and Coast to Coast, and BUFO radio. Cool. So anyhow, so that's what, 15, 16 years ago, something like that. So I have all these archived radio shows, and my project now is I'm taking all these radio shows and I'm updating them, or taking out the dated material, and I'm creating like slideshows, and I'm going to create my own YouTube channel. Nice. And so that people will be able to actually sit back and listen, to the old archive shows, but but more dated or, updated.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I think that's wonderful. What a great idea.
oh, but a big project.
It
Because, like I
is.
said, 15, 16 years of radio shows. That's going to keep me busy through the
My
winter.
goodness, you are a busy woman. There's no doubt about it. You've been everywhere. And I wanted to ask you, when you do your haunted woods tours, do you do some kind of a ceremony? Do you open up the vortex, or how does that work?
Well, the vortex is already open, but I've noticed through the years on this vortex in Burlington, and I would imagine it works the same way with all these, is that the more attention is the door opener, is the doorknob, that you turn in order to open up this doorway into the other worlds. So the more people I can take into this, per se, the haunted woods, or the sacred sites of the woods, the more attention people put to it, thus more energy they put to it, thus the woods becomes yearly stronger and stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And this year it has become incredibly strong. It was, I actually was up in there last week. And actually, it was Friday, and it was so strong up there. It felt like I had just stepped off a tilt-a-whirl, and the people I'd taken up in there had felt the same way. Mm. And it, you have to acclimate yourself to that energy up there. And but of course, we got that. What do they call it? The Wave X coming through.
Right, I've heard about that. Yeah.
And and that's. And I realized that up in that wooded area up there with that vortex, that would be one of the first ones that would be affected, by this. And I wasn't wrong. It took me about 4 days, I think it was, to straighten myself out from being in those woods.
Really? So you really do you feel like lightheaded, or what are your symptoms?
Well, I actually was throwing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So
it was just like it was just like I said, it felt just like, those fairs where you have the tilt-a-whirls and it's going spinning so fast, and then you get off and, you make that beeline, to the quickest bathroom you can find. Well, that's about it. But I actually threw up several times because my stomach just couldn't keep up to that spin.
Wow.
And so the doorways are definitely opening up there. And I got to go up there again soon, and it's just like, I'm actually a little frightened of it right now, but I'm sure that pretty soon it'll all start settling down, or at least I'll start getting acclimated.
Right. I was going to say, what comes to mind is maybe bringing some kind of a stone or something for more grounding, perhaps.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I've always, well, with me living in Burlington, I was acclimated anyhow to that vortex. But since we moved, I've been out of that area for about 4 months. Right. And I've been acclimating more to this new energy of where I live, which is more feminine, softer, and so when I went back in there, it just kind of threw me for a loop. But
I wonder, how does it affect everybody else?
They felt the same way.
Did they really?
Everybody got sick.
Oh, geez.
Everybody. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a spin.
Right.
The vortex itself. It's people don't see it visually. But the spin, nevertheless, is still there, and the body is affected by it.
Right. Yeah.
And
what is the elevation there? Do you know?
Oh, geez, I don't know, but this is Wisconsin, so we don't go so much on elevation here like they do in the West.
What about ley lines? Anything pertaining to?
The strongest ley lines in the world come through that area. Mm-hmm. There's a Shambhala ley line, the Great Native American ley line, the Mary Magdalene ley line, and there's another one I can't, think off the top of my head what it is, but there's 4 major ley lines that go right through that area and cross over.
Well, that would make sense then. That's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I figure, and things manifest there. Mm-hmm. And we've actually had how a lot of other places, they see ghosts, but mainly, they're kind of seeing something transparent. But we've actually had ghosts physically manifest up there into, a human form and talk to us.
Really?
And
Wow.
then you say something and they disappear.
What do they look like? Are they out of time?
Well, we've seen, well, yeah, it's from different times. We've seen Native American Indians up there. There was a pioneer girl that one time appeared, and I mean, she looked totally physical. I mean, you would have thought that she was just another person, on the tour. And she said, "What are you doing here?" to this one couple. They were probably in their mid 60s, mid to late 60s, I would say. And they went to answer her, and she just disappeared, and it just really shocked them. We've seen a little girl manifest up there. As a matter of fact, one time it was raining, and the little girl was playing alongside the path, and some of the people says, well, maybe you should get up, and go catch up to your parents up ahead before you get lost. And the little girl just got up and kind of giggled and kind of brushed her little dress off and ran up, to more of the front of the line. And then when the group all, got together back at the parking lot, we started looking around for the parents of the little girl, and little girl wasn't there. She was a ghost.
Oh my goodness.
But physically, she looked just like, anybody else, So, yeah, we've had quite a lot of different manifestations up there. Mm-hmm. We've also got entities up there, and I can't really say what they are, so I'm just going to go with the word entities. But I don't think that they're ghosts. They're more physical in nature, because they'll walk next to you and you can see the imprint of their foot as they push the leaves down,
wow.
On the ground, and you can hear the crunching of the leaves.
Oh my goodness.
So, to me, that's not a ghost, because I can't see a ghost being,
Wow.
Because usually, because ghosts are more etheric.
Mm-hmm, right.
So what we're assuming is that what these are is some types of entities out there that are physical, yet has the understanding, the knowledge of how to cloak themselves, to make themselves invisible.
Right. Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Well, they remind me of elementals to some degree.
To some degree, yeah. We've also had, we've have evidence of Bigfoot up in that area,
really?
Too. Yeah.
What did you see?
Well, last year we were coming down the hill, and I was rushed by a Bigfoot, a big male. It was probably, I would say, anywhere between 9-10 foot. And he was screaming as he was coming down off that hill, running right towards the group. And anyhow, he was like, the sound was something, it was similar to like these mountain apes, when they, give, that threatening scream,
right.
and I felt that it was in between that and like a bear making that charging sound.
Right.
So it was kind of like a combination of the two. And he got about, I'd say about 20 foot from us. And then he just stopped and stepped off into this brush area and then disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know if he disappeared, like stepped into a portal and disappeared, or if he cloaked himself, or has the ability to maybe camouflage himself. So if he stands next to a tree, he looks like a tree.
Right.
But one thing we know for sure, there was a bunch that went chasing after him because they wanted to take pictures. They wanted me to go along, but I was actually physically and mentally in shock because I wasn't expecting it. Mm-hmm. And especially something like that coming down off that hill at us. Okay. And I just, when this was happening, I was like paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't run. I couldn't even scream. Mm-hmm. And then once I settled down a little bit and he was gone, they wanted to go out and look for him. And I just told them, I said, I'm not going. And they said, well, why? And I said, well, what are you going to do if you catch him?
Oh, I don't think they're going to be able to catch him. Yeah.
Or if they see him, they start flashing their cameras.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
because he was already antagonized, otherwise he would have been chasing down that hill.
Right.
But what we had realized that night was, see, I usually do my tours on Saturday nights up there. And so the Bigfoot, they know that. But this group was coming in from Minneapolis and they got there early. So they wanted to do the tour on a Friday night. Excuse me. And so for one thing, they wasn't expecting us up there on a Friday night. And second of all, for the very first time, and I've never seen it actually afterwards either, there was turtles up on the path, and they were laying their eggs.
Wow.
And I think what happened was that there was a pod of Bigfoot, and they were harvesting those turtle eggs. And the pod had become separated. And there was, and this was that big male, and he was probably watching out for his family, right? And so I think what it was he didn't come charging off that hill to hurt us. He came out that hill to frighten us away, so that that the pod could regroup, because there was there was 3 or 4 other women in the group. It was a fairly sized group, and there was 3 or 4 women in the group. They were so frightened, they just wanted to get out of the woods and get to their car. So they left us and got ahead of us. Next thing we know, they're screaming and coming running back at us, and jumped in and jumped behind my back and a couple other people's backs.
Wow.
And they said that they had seen 3 Bigfoot up further, and there was 2 juveniles and 1 large one. So I'm thinking that was the female.
Oh, wow.
But so anyhow, I got the people out of there, and then luckily for us is that it had rained that night prior to us going on the tour. So it was kind of muddy out there. The ground was soft. So the next day, because the group was from Minneapolis and they spent the night at the hotel, I asked them to meet with me at the Sci-Fi Cafe that morning, because I wanted to go back up there with cameras and that and see if we couldn't find any evidence of what had happened to us the night prior. And so we got up there and we found huge Bigfoot prints, beautiful prints too. I mean, deep and very well formed, showing the 5 toes. And and then where that Bigfoot had rushed us, we got to the top of the hill, and it was like in the fall, so there was leaves up there, damp leaves. So we found the imprint of his butt as where he had been sitting up there on that hill. And then we was able to we photographed that, and then we photographed the trail that he had made, or the path that he had made as he was running off the hill, because the leaves were all disturbed. And so, and then he also broke down a sizable tree. And so we were able to photograph the tree, because it was kind of broken in half.
Oh my goodness! Did you put these up? Did you upload the photos?
Yeah, it's actually up on my Facebook under albums, and that one would be named Bigfoot.
That's amazing. And obviously, you know the difference between a bear and something other than a bear, right? Yeah. I know you do. Yeah. But that's the first thing that comes to mind with people. Right. And also, what time of night was this?
This would have been, because we were coming back from the tour, so this would have probably been about 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
For years we've had the rock throwing, and the whistles, and the bird calls, so we've always known that Bigfoot's been around, but they've never made human contact except that one time last year.
Right.
And
I think you're one of the first people that's actually had an encounter that close.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I was paralyzed in fear. I mean, because my brain wouldn't accept what was happening, And because I've heard, the stories of people becoming paralyzed with fear, but what is that? I mean, you hear about it, but most people don't experience it. But I actually became paralyzed with fear. I couldn't move. I couldn't yell out,
Do they have a smell to them at all?
Well, this is where I'm kind of different than most people. I'm not saying that most people aren't smelling this rank smell, but I have a tendency, because we've had because we've been up there for years and the Bigfoot's always been around. But so, I've kind of gotten to know them a little, and there's been a couple different times, well, especially this one time, I had a real big group, and we pulled into the parking lot, and we got out, and it was just rancid with the smell of a skunk. I mean, so bad you could hardly breathe, right? Mm-hmm. Now, a skunk, though, when it sprays, that smell stays for days. Mm-hmm. And in this, when we was up into the woods for a couple hours, we came back, the smell was totally gone. No evidence of it whatsoever. But as we were going up into the woods, every once in a while, we would smell that skunk. But it would just be, smell it, in a few minutes it'd be gone, or 5, maybe 15, 20 minutes it'd be gone. Mm-hmm. And so I think what the Bigfoot's doing, I think that the Bigfoot kind of maintains like the ape, they groom themselves, mm-hmm. but I think that they put out this scent. Maybe they have some sort of a scent gland that when something gets too close to them, they release this scent, mm-hmm. which is very, very similar to a skunk.
Right.
But the scent doesn't last as long as the skunk smell would last.
Well,
so that's what I'm thinking, because there's been a lot of times that we've been close to the Bigfoot, mm-hmm. Not seeing it, but close to them. And we've never, every once in a while we'd smell the odor, but most of the time not. And that kind of threw me off at first, because I'm, before I started getting familiar with the Bigfoot up in that area, it's because I'd heard all the stories about how rank they smell. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not smelling that, right. So I knew that they were there kind of in my mind, but I would talk myself out of it because of the stories I had heard.
Right.
But now I realize that they don't necessarily have to smell. And another thing too, it depends on if you're upwind or downwind from them. Mm-hmm. I would think.
Right.
It's like any other animal. They'll animals will pick up a scent if the winds or the wind's coming in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm. How far away was the Bigfoot from the vortex?
It was right in the vortex.
Oh, so yeah,
the whole area of Burlington is one huge vortex, but there's in this wooded area, it's extremely strong. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, excuse me for a second. It's kind of like a little mini vortexes within a huge vortex.
Oh, I see.
And then I think like in the woods is kind of almost like the heart of the vortex. Mm-hmm. And but the vortex itself creates doorways, interdimensional or multidimensional doorways, and that's where these entities are coming in and going mm-hmm. out of. Exactly. Now we had an officer, a deputy sheriff, several different deputy sheriffs tell us that they have had strange experiences, and one of the officers from that area told me that outside of Burlington, the opposite direction, there's a place called Bong Recreational Park, and he was patrolling the area, and he saw a Bigfoot, and so he turned his car around, parked it, got out, and it was when he first saw it, it was in a field, and there was some small wooded area right back behind the field. So he got out, and the creature wasn't there at that time, but it was winter, so it had left footprints in the snow. Mm-hmm. And so he got out, and he was tracking those footprints, and then they just disappeared. I mean, they stopped. and there was no more footprints.
Hmm.
And he asked me, where did they go? And it's like,
Interesting.
the only thing I can think of, is he stepped into one of those dimensional doorways.
Right.
But he kept walking around into the wooded area and had no signs of it. But he wasn't quite sure because he knew the way he's seen it, it was either because he kind of caught like the back side of it. Mm-hmm. So it was either a Bigfoot or a dogman, because we do have dogmen out here as well.
You do?
So, yeah.
Wow, what an active area. Oh, my goodness. So can you describe one of those?
A dogman? Hmm? Well, the Bigfoot to me is human, human-like. Mm-hmm. Probably evolved alongside of us. Going back to accounts of the Epic of Gilgamesh talks about the wild hairy beast, mm-hmm. and I think that these entities, I even hate even calling them entities, but they evolved right with us. But I think that they live in more of the underground,
right?
And or they have the ability to step in and out of these portals, but I trust Bigfoot, mm-hmm. but the dogman, I think that they're upright. They stand upright like a human. They're about, I don't know, anywhere. I've heard stories anywhere between 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, and they have the head of a wolf, like a werewolf or something.
Oh, so like a wolf man.
Like a wolf man. But they're extremely fast. And they hunt though in packs, just like wolves do. Mm-hmm. And I feel that they're more animalistic. I don't see anything human about them, and I think that they're very, very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I think that could account for a lot of missing people, out in these national parks and these mm-hmm. forest areas too.
That's a good point.
But
is that near a Native American site? Where you're seeing these type of werewolves? It is. Yeah. Okay.
It seems. Yeah. It seems that they follow the corn. Mm-hmm. Fields of corn. And they're in these vortex areas. And I'm thinking that they probably use the doorways to go in and out of. But there's also skinwalkers too, right. And they could be a form of a skinwalker. I don't.
You ever encountered anything like that? A skinwalker?
Nope.
Everybody's
don't want
really
to
nervous.
either.
So I ask people about this; they don't want to talk about it, and a lot of Native Americans refuse to discuss it.
Oh yeah, the Native Americans totally refuse to discuss it because they believe like me. As far as like I explained earlier about you put your attention to something,
right?
And you give it power. And that's what has happened a lot down in those woods. Is more all these people that we've brought in. They've put their attention to what's going on in those woods, thus it becomes powerful. Mm-hmm. Indians think the same way about these skinwalkers,
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, that's how you manifest one's reality. I mean, that's what we're dealing with is manifesting at will, and that's why we have to watch what we think. I mean, on a lot of levels, because we do bring in a reality based on our thoughts.
We do. We really do. It's I've been studying these jinn a lot lately.
Yeah.
And because I first discovered jinn, the idea of jinn through the UFO researcher Jacques Vallée. Mm-hmm. And so he gives me another possibility. And through, lately I've been, reading as much material as I possibly can read and watching YouTube videos, on the jinn. And the jinn, they're like the Native American tricksters. So, I mean, they can make themselves look human. They can look like a UFO. They can put you in another time and place, and you wouldn't even know that you were gone, mm-hmm. which accounts for missing time. So, right. Now we got the possibility that a lot of things that we're seeing may be, and I could put a little quote around that, may be a possibility of the jinn or the trickster playing games with, or playing mm-hmm. head games with us. But I still believe that these wolfmen and Bigfoot and UFOs still do exist. It's just that sometimes, this trickster or the jinn will duplicate or replicate that in a person's mind.
Right. Well, I still think it's a busy universal highway, and I think anything goes with manifestation of energy. So I think anything can happen. I had somebody tell me that I had immunity to skinwalkers one time, and I didn't know how to take that. I hope it's a good sign because it was weird. But yeah, I won't even say anything more about it, but it was interesting. So I'm not sure how they read that in me. But I don't know much about skinwalkers, to be honest with you. I was just curious.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good thing.
Because Well, I've been through some interesting events in my experience on the planet. I guess maybe that's what it is. So.
Well, you can always count on. A lot of times, most of the places I go, I don't put a protection around me. I think I'm going to take your advice, though. When it comes to those woods, I'm going to start, having like grounding stone.
Yeah, like hematite or something, maybe.
Yeah, but through my life of research, I've just generally depended. I have faith in my angels, my guardian angels, and that they will, Archangel Michael, that, I've asked for protection. They gave me protection. There's no point in me having to ask over and over and over again. Right. I think that, I honestly believe that we attract to us, according to our thoughts.
Yep, absolutely.
And that if a person, is they can pull demons to them, by having negative thoughts and worrying and getting caught up in fear and things like that. But the greatest protection, as far as I'm concerned, is you just love, unconditionally. Right. And that's what I try to do. I don't discriminate against people. I, don't point my fingers at people because they don't believe the same way as me. I try to be there for people when, they, have a problem. So I think that by doing so, I think that, that allows the angels to be able to work and help me, because I think that what it is, it's a vibrational field, and the angels, because they're higher vibrational, that they can't get down into that that darkness. And so if we want to have their help, we have to lift our vibration up to a point where they can match it,
Right. Yep.
And thus, so they surround us and they protect us. And so, so this,
very, very true.
Yeah, so the people getting caught up in fear and worrying about their health and worrying about, their food they're eating, those worries keep them at that lower frequency, and they need to, if they want to empower themselves, they need to get away from that.
I agree.
And just put their faith, and into a higher source. Yeah. Take their power
and also
back.
Blessing their food to raise the vibration. I mean, as soon as you put your intent on something, as you were discussing earlier, you're changing the reality, you're changing the frequency and the vibration. You're talking about higher consciousness and manifesting at the highest level. So, people want to change the dynamic of their food or the molecular structure. All they have to do is lay their hands over it and bless it and raise the vibratory rate.
Oh my God, you're a person of my own heart. You don't know how many times I tell people that. It's like, so many things that we do today, we don't even think anything of it. We just do it because, we've seen our parents do it and our grandparents and stuff like that. And, it's like when our parents or grandparents used to get around a table, they would, before they ate, they'd always say, bless this food that we were about to receive,
Right.
That wasn't a blessing for, a blessing for them. It was a blessing for the food.
Right.
And there was a reason behind that. One is it gave honor to the animal or vegetable or whatever that sacrificed itself, for our nutrition. And it was also to raise that vibration, of the food that they were taking into them, where it would be healthy for them.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
gratitude.
yeah, and it's I'm glad you brought that up because very few people realize that it's like Dr. Amato's work with the water,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how you think of that water, what you're feeling about that water,
Right.
that changes the molecular structure of that water. It can make it very unhealthy, or it can make it very healthy.
Exactly. And that's with your body as well, as we all know. That's
Yeah,
why I'm a firm believer in holistic medicine and healing, because we
yeah.
truly can heal ourselves through frequency, without a
When my,
doubt.
when my husband had cancer, I never let anybody know about it,
Mm-hmm.
and and we were very, very careful of how, like, for example, how, like, when you say cancer, you'll feel it in your body. There's like this little cringe,
Mm-hmm.
cringe of fear, or cringe of hopelessness or something. But the body reacts to that very word. So when Brad was going through his cancer, I asked him, I says, Brad, what's your favorite, fruit or whatever? And he said, I like blueberries. And I says, okay, so why don't we change that word, the C word, and change it into blueberries? So every time you think about it, you think blueberries. Anytime you speak about it, you speak blueberries. Because it would change, how the body reacted to
Right.
it.
Reprogramming. And blueberries
Uh-huh.
are good, high in antioxidants too, by the way.
Right. And then I had him wear blue shirts. Everything blue,
Psychic protection. There you go.
Uh-huh. And we never spoke about it, like I never put it on Facebook or anything that he had the cancer, because I didn't want anybody reading about it, because as soon as they read about it, they'd be giving it power.
Correct.
So we just eliminated it all. And by gosh, he beat that cancer within 4 months.
Oh, wonderful.
I
Yay.
mean, and he is as healthy as can be. He came out of it, and he's healthier actually than he was before, you know. But
Great.
but it's attention. What type of attention do you put to something?
Right.
And then, of course, when you're in these vortex areas, it's just so intensified.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it would probably. The reason I would suspect it make people vomit is it's detoxifying your system through a frequency to some degree.
Well, that's what I was thinking too,
Mhm.
because of me throwing up. I was thinking maybe what it was it was purging
Yeah, that's exactly
a
what
lot
comes
of
to
that
mind.
negative out. Yeah,
Right.
because you see, right up in that area, there's a very ancient site, and I came across it. When I first moved to Burlington, nobody even knew that there was a vortex there. Didn't know about the Indian mounds there. They didn't have a clue what was going on. And anyhow, when I was up in the woods, I found what they call a sacred circle.
Mm.
And the sacred circle, there's two different types of vortexes. There's a male vortex and there's a female vortex. And a male vortex spins counterclockwise. And those are the type of vortex that you find in Hawaii, because they produce all these vivid colors in their flowers and that. But a feminine vortex, it rotates clockwise, and it's very dull in color. It's like chickens. You got the rooster, that all those fancy colors, and then the hen is just a dull color. It's kind of like like how the animal kingdom's set up.
Right.
But the female our vortex it's all about mother. It's all about nurturing and healing. So, and that's what we found up in the woods, is this, where you could actually go up there and sit in this circle, and it would, like you said, it would purge all that negativity out of you, and a lot of times I noticed that people that they had bad memories that, that they wasn't, giving attention to, they just kind of forgot about, kind of filed it away, and but the woods somehow would pull this out of them and make them actually have to, force them into dealing with it.
Right.
And you would see people just sitting there just crying for no reason at all, just start crying. And then other people, they would be giddy. We've had several different people that actually went up there with cancer and walked out with being cured.
That's wonderful.
But I don't tell people it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. I mean, I don't know what kicks in this healing, but it does seem to, it does seem to work.
Right. I think if they're open to it, they would probably heal better.
Yeah. Well, the body itself,
Mm-hmm.
it's us that heal. The brain provides what it needs, to heal anything. But it's just opening up those receptacles, I guess, in order to allow the brain to do what it's supposed to do as far as healing the body.
Right. It sounds like you're describing healing crisis for people who are having emotional releases and all that's happening to them when they go up there. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And I tell people, too, that if they can't get to the woods, to go out there in their wooded area and find a nice big tree that actually almost pulls their attention.
Mm-hmm.
A tree that kind of stands out. And I says, and just go there and put your back up, stand tall, put your back right up against that tree, and then ask the tree to pull out all that negative energy.
That's a great idea.
And it works.
Mm-hmm.
And people that are stressed, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the change in them after they because that's what the tree is made. One of the things it's made for is to pull that negative energy out, because Mother Earth feeds off of negative energy, so that's her food. So the tree will pull that negative energy down into Mother Earth. She feeds off of it and recycles it into something positive, which is pulled back up through the tree and then sent out into the sky, as positive energy.
Right.
So it's like the humans, the trees, the earth, the sky, they all, they all work and live off of each other.
Right. The web of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It truly is. That's so beautiful. I like the way you described that, and I wish more people would pay attention to that. I live up in a forest, so yeah, it's beautiful to be around nature and trees.
It is.
It's a blessing. There's no doubt about it. And I'm wondering, when you talked about that Bigfoot going into these different vortexes and things, I'm wondering if his molecular structure changes at the frequency level in order for him to phase shift, because it sounds like he's phase shifting.
I think that's exactly what he's doing. You're just right on point, girl.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I have an interesting background.
If you go to my Facebook and go into the albums, you'll find an album on tours. There's a bunch of albums on tours, and you'll also find an album there called Strange Woods. I think that's what it's called. And I actually have the ability to photograph people phase shifting.
Really?
Into the other dimensions. And then not only do I have the ability to photograph them etherically leaving their body, and going into the portals, but I can actually photograph the physical body and the other body as it's in that other dimension.
Oh, wow.
So there'll be like two of one person standing next to each other. Sometimes
like the etheric double?
Yeah.
Oh,
and sometimes there could be 5 of the same person standing next to each other, in different dimensions.
What kind of camera are you using?
I always tell people, if they want to do this type of work, one is they have to understand and accept the fact that everything has its own spirit and its own intelligence and its own means of communicating with you. And that's not only rocks and trees and water, but it also comes to your camera. And you know how people that are using pendulums or tarot cards even, they'll take the pendulum or the tarot card and they'll put that underneath their pillow and sleep, with their tools, for several nights until they can become one.
Right.
And then that way they can eat the cards work for them. and the pendulum works for them,
Right.
because they've made that connection. You can do the same thing with your camera.
Nice.
And so once a person realizes that that camera has its own intelligence and its own ability to connect to you as you connect to it, the camera will actually start photographing what you're seeking. And like with my husband, he loves fairies, and he really loves orbs. And so with him, when we go out there, he will, when he's snapping pictures, he gets pictures of fairies and orbs. Now with me, my camera is designed in a way, from through that, how I just explained it.
Mm-hmm.
It knows that I want to see through the veil. I want to see phase shifting. I want to see the multi-dimensions. And so that's what it photographs.
Nice.
And
you're setting the intent. That's awesome.
It's totally, and having faith. This is the big thing too. They have to actually have faith that it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, when they go up into the woods, they take their cameras and it doesn't work for them. But it seems like if I'm with them up in the woods, because they believe in me,
mm-hmm.
right? They get the pictures.
Yep.
And once they get the picture, and they can get these pictures on their cell phones too. And once they get the picture, then they always get the picture, because now it's not the belief in me. Now, once they get that picture, then it's belief in themselves
mm-hmm.
and belief in their camera.
Right.
They just kind of needed me as that tool, to kind of help them through.
Right.
And another thing I tell people, because it always just be funny, because I've got this $100 digital camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting these. I've got over 700,000, and that was last year. So I've got more than that now. But I have over 700,000 pictures of all this paranormal and, and the phase shifting and the, photographing alternate realities and that. I mean, these are just the good ones I kept.
So you need a coffee table book.
Well, I have to have volumes on volumes. I don't think the coffee table would even hold it up. But the thing was, so people would see me with this little camera shooting, so they'd go get like a $500 camera, because, she can get this with an $80, $100 camera. Surely I can get it if I spend $500 on a camera, right? Mm-hmm. So they'd go up there and get nothing. And then, so it started getting back to me what these people were doing. So I told them, I says, this is the thing. When the camera manufacturers makes a camera, they don't, and what they do is they put a filter on it, an infrared filter on the camera. And the more expensive the camera is, the more of the stronger the infrared filter is.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, most of everything we're looking for is in that infrared zone. So with an expensive camera, you're going to have that all filtered out.
Right.
Because they had to do that because people were taking pictures, wedding shots and family get-togethers and things, and they were getting orbs and strange streaks of lights and things like that, and ghosts, it was freaking people out. So they were saying these cameras are defective. So that's why the manufacturers started putting in these infrared filters.
Oh, wow.
So I tell people, get a cheap camera, because the cheaper the camera is, the weaker the infrared filter is.
Mm-hmm.
And then your mind alone, okay, like with mine, my camera, because I use my mind's ability to it's practically burned off what little of an infrared filter it had. Mm-hmm. So there again, the mind working with the camera will, burn that filter where
That's
you
amazing.
can actually work it. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about on the last show I had. We were talking about virtual reality, virtual space, and it seems like the next step would be just manifesting reality through consciousness. We're probably just a little bit away from being able to actually pull things out of the ethers and actually materializing things like the 3D printer.
Yeah, and but now that that wave X is coming through, I'm seeing things manifesting a lot more so. And a lot of synchronicity, instant manifestation, of people's desires, coming through. But it's a very dangerous time too that we're living in because of the fact that, and I'm sure you agree with me, that if we are starting to have instant manifestation, the last thing you need to be doing is having all these negative thoughts and fears of what's going to happen, because whatever you think is going to happen is probably what's going to happen to you.
Right. Well, the frequency should drop the density and the drama bubbles. But are you speaking? Now, I'm not familiar with the terminology wave X. I've heard about it, but it parallels the ascension wave. Is that pretty much what people are talking about? The photon shift type thing?
Well, we started going through that photon belt years ago, and that's, what started our awakening. 9/11 played a big part of our awakening. Katrina played a big part too. It's kind of like a shock factor, it woke us up. And then it also made us realize that we can't trust somebody else, to take care of our own affairs. So it started getting people to stand on their own 2 feet a lot. But now we've got this very strong wave coming from deep, deep, deep space, that is coming through and it's hit Earth. And I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's bombarding Earth and with this, with this photon, and it's causing an ascension not only of the people but Earth itself. I think that the Bible talks about it, the Book of Mormon. I mean, you hear it, in various religious texts, New Age books, that this Earth is separating. And there's going to be a new Earth. And to me, that is a phase shift.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we will shift. We will either stay on this old Earth or we'll phase shift and solidify on this new Earth plane.
That's exactly what's going on. And I'll tell you what's coming in. It's interesting because you talk about the wave X, and is that coming from the galactic center or is it coming from someplace else?
I think it's coming from much further away.
Okay, interesting. And also, because I've taught ascension and DNA activation in the past, and I'm very clear that when they do these shiftings, there's different there's a full light universe and an oratronic, an incomplete universe, that there's a split. But I also see, and you might be picking up on this also with what's happening here on the timeline, is that there's a lot of technological stuff that's going on to run interference with the ascension energies. In other words, they're trying to capture this frequency and sort of keep everybody in a stasis from ascending. So I always address that to make sure people are understanding that there is some interference being run, and I think that's what's causing some extra drama bubbles on the timeline.
Well, when I used to with BUFO Radio, I used to do a lot of shows with the shaman Red Elk. Are you familiar with him? Anyhow, Red Elk had always told me, he says, when this time comes, he says, either people are going to learn how to bend like a reed or they're going to snap like a twig. Yep. And I don't think there was any truer words spoken by him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree.
Where I'm seeing the biggest problem, and I think that this is why these type of shows are so very important, is most of the people do not understand a physical world versus metaphysical world.
Right.
And they don't understand that there's this wave that's coming in. They have no clue. And so they're feeling this anxiety. They're feeling a change in their body, and their body's reacting by becoming, anxious, and so they get caught up in that because they don't know what's going on. So they think, well, maybe it's my work. Maybe the government's doing something. Maybe, it's the food I'm eating or the water I'm drinking. And they get so caught up in that, and that's the ones that are they're snapping like twigs,
Right.
they're arguing and doing ridiculous shows like the Kardashians and
Oh, gosh.
that's Kate and stuff like that,
Mm.
because they're trying to find a place,
Right.
to
It's
fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're trying to find a place, but so they're kind of running from one extreme to another extreme, trying to find that place of safety. And they just don't get it. But so with shows like what you're doing and, all of us are doing and our Facebooks and our blogging is we're getting that information out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the responsibility. I call us bridge builders.
Absolutely.
And it's the responsibility to each and every one of us, to educate our friends, and family members, very softly though, and to educate them on what's happening, because it's not their job and it's not the food they're eating. It's a metaphysical change.
Right. And also with that comes the false matrix, which they're living in, falling away. And that's part of the new Earth star coming up.
Yeah, I came across something really interesting the other day or the other night, and I still got to play around with it in my mind. Okay, so I'm just bringing it up now to you for the first time, and probably putting it in words for the first time. But I was watching this show on this teacher trying to teach the kids, math, right? And he put the numbers, for pi, right? And then underneath of it, the symbol of pi. And then he explained it. Because he said to the students, he says, "Is there any questions?" And this one girl looks up from doing her, she was typing on her cell phone naturally, and she looks up at him and she says, "Well, yeah, what? How are we ever even going to use this?" And then he explained to her that in the numbers of pi, because it's infinity, it just keeps right on going. Mm-hmm. He says each and every person is with those numbers, is in that equation. Mm-hmm. And each and every one of us is needed to be in the equation, and every event, everything that happens in our lives is part of that equation. Mm-hmm. And as he's explaining it to me, I'm watching, and I looked over at Brad and I says, "Oh my God, I finally get it. I know what pi is." Brad says, "What?" I says, "It's the matrix."
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope I explained that right.
No, you did. Yeah. Very, very interesting. No, I agree with you. And there's so many, well, they have these other matrices too, and false matrices, but I agree. I think people are all interconnected to the multiverse, and that's multidimensional reality and states of consciousness. So once they get calibrated to that through frequency, it's smooth sailing once you get calibrated through consciousness. And I know you understand that. It's the people that are not calibrated to metaphysics and understanding frequency and the aspects of what's really happening on a multidimensional scale. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's like I try to explain it to people that to be in the flow is like if you were in a creek and there's a current. And you get into a little river, creek, whatever you want to call, but if you get in there, and if you go with that current, you can just float and everything runs smooth. There's no struggles. Mm-hmm. But if you try to go against the current, that's where all the struggles start, and you get tired, And so I says, like with life, if everything is going good for you, and everything is falling into place, this is your way of knowing that you're flowing with the current.
Right, absolutely.
But if you're struggling and, you just can't get ahead, every time you do something else happens. Yep. That is an indicator to me that you are not in the flow.
I totally agree.
In sync with the life flow.
Yeah, where I come from, we call it living in a state of grace. But yeah, I totally resonate with that. And with that being said, we're going to head for a break. Everybody, please stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Dark Matter Digital Network. My special guest is Mary Sutherland. Back, everybody, to the Dark Matter Digital Network. I'm Solaris BlueRaven. This is Hyperspace, and I'm here with my very special guest, Mary Sutherland. Mary, you with me?
Yes, I am.
All right. It's just wonderful to have you on tonight. I'm so happy to interview you.
I am enjoying our conversation, so thank you.
Me too. You're so enlightened, and it's just a pleasure. So thank you again. And I was going to ask you, do you ever get any hitchers over there when you do those tours around the vortex when you go home?
No.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there are places in Burlington, because what I do or did, and I still do, I should say, is I always go out first. And, I explore these areas. And if I find anything that is negative, that's bad, or that has hitchers, or things like that, I don't even tell people where they're at, because I don't want people getting hurt. And these hitchers are very, very real. There's too many thrill seekers that would love to go out there, but they don't know what they're really stepping into. But the woods that I take people in, it's so magical. I always tell people, I think there's maybe about 5 magical forests in the world, like you read in the fairy tales, and this is one of them. And it's filled with fairies and the little people, leprechauns, trolls, and and then UFOs. It's got the spirit beings, and it's such a happy place. It's such a the energy is so beautiful that most of the people don't want to leave that area, let alone, and so it's like, why would any of the spirits even want to leave here? It's just so beautiful. And so no, we've never had that happen.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's nice to have sanctuaries across the board, and it seems like they are becoming more and more scarce in the forests.
They are, but I think that with people's new awareness coming to them, and and they learn about that the trees and how they communicate, and the plant life and the energies in these forests. I think what they'll start doing is, with that appreciation that that new appreciation is, they'll probably start bringing that life back into the woods.
Right.
I'm hoping anyhow.
Yeah, me too. What always comes to mind is that movie Excalibur, the early one where the land comes back to life after he drinks from the Grail.
Yeah.
It's that state of consciousness, really, to some degree.
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly what it is. And when I first started the Sci-Fi Cafe in Burlington, the people, it was like I'd have people come into town, and they'd tell me they'd say it was like coming into that movie, The Stepford Wives. People were walking around like zombies. They didn't notice anything. You smile at them, it's like they'd look at you like, "Who are you?" Right? And and I decided what I was going to do is create a place of sanctuary. I set it up right downtown, right dead center in the middle of historic Burlington,
Nice.
And the people, they were so afraid of it. It's like, who is this woman? Is she a witch? Or, she deals with UFOs, my God, scared half to death of me, and they would actually walk across the street so they didn't even have to pass the cafe,
Really?
And but that was okay, because as the years went by, people started changing, and I noticed it. Well, of course, I had my followers that were all coming in, so I mean, it didn't really hurt me financially, and I gave the people a place of sanctuary where like minds could come together without fear of criticism, and be able to tell their stories. So it was a great place, a wonderful place. We had conferences and meetups and things like that. And so their energies, it just started expanding, and it ended up that, Burlington turned into a very nice place where people come now to Burlington. They say, God, I want to live here.
Nice.
But that's expanded consciousness. And I'm seeing, well, 5 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago, what we're talking about now it's fairly common, the things that we talk about,
Right.
even in mainstream population.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your documentaries on TV. So, I call them the 9 to 5ers. They sit back for entertainment, and watch things on Bigfoot and then, you got your shows like Excalibur and that. So the TV in its own way is introducing this new consciousness
Mm-hmm.
because people are saying, God, I love fairies. I love the story of Excalibur, so it's expanding that consciousness. And I'm thinking that we're, like I said, 6, 7 years ago, they were scared half to death of talking about this stuff. And
Right.
now you're slowly seeing even the 9 to 5ers
Mm-hmm.
talking on Bigfoot and ghosts and
Right.
you know.
Yeah, it is
So
becoming more mainstream. There's no doubt about it. People are up to speed. Even a few years ago, I was like, Bigfoot? And I was like, what? And then I'm like doing more research, and I'm like, oh my God. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm telling you.
well, I think that even us, I guess a lot of people call us, light workers.
Hmm.
But I think every day we learn something. I mean,
Right.
the knowledge doesn't stop and it never ever will.
Yep.
I think that we're just right now scratching the surface of what's really out there.
I agree.
And I can just see so much magic,
Hmm.
unfolding.
Right.
It's like that, the Buddhist lotus. It's unfolding,
Yep,
you know.
absolutely. And your work offers that quite a bit. And I want to touch with you about the red-haired giants and
Sure.
Atlantis, because, if people haven't picked up your book yet, they really need to read that. Now, I understand you were one of the first researchers that was actually doing the research on red-haired giants. Is that right?
Yeah, and I got a lot of heat from my peers about it because, who is this woman, she has the audacity, to even bring up that there is this race of red-haired giants,
Uh-huh.
who is this woman? This is crazy talk, and they've made my life kind of miserable there for a
Oh,
while, but I'm very tenacious, you
good.
know, and, it's like, if I see something, nobody's going to tell me out there I didn't see it,
Right.
you know? And if I experience something, nobody's trying to going to change my mind of that I experienced it, how I experienced it, what it could be. I know, you
Hmm.
know? And if I go outdoors and the sun's shining, nobody's going to tell me it's raining,
Exactly.
right? So this is the type of person I am. So in the beginning, there was one website out there on this red-haired race of giants, and that was mine. Now, today, you can type in red-haired giants, and there's millions
Hmm.
of sites out there, actual millions of sites out there. So for the listeners, if you believe in your heart something is right, you know, follow through on it. Don't let anybody ever talk you out of it.
Hmm.
Follow your path. And you
Absolutely.
can and you can always tell if you're right because it's I've learned how to listen to my body. I think and I teach that to people. Pay attention to your body and how it responds to things. And if you're doing something and and it makes you happy, and excited,
Hmm.
that's your body telling you you're on the right path.
Absolutely. Yeah, the
And
spirit
so,
sings.
yeah, so follow that. Follow your passion,
Hmm.
regardless if nobody else believes in it or not.
Right. And
You
most of the
know,
time, those people are peanut galleries anyway. A lot of those people don't even do the research, but they're the first one to point fingers at everybody else.
yeah, you
So,
got,
yeah,
yeah.
I call them
But
the peanut gallery.
well, I just look at it, that each person, as the way it's been prophesized, each person eventually is going to get it,
Hmm.
and nobody's going to be left behind, and so, I don't know how it exactly works that nobody's going to be left behind. Maybe they go through another cycle up through the what is it, the Kali Yoga?
Or Kali Rift, or Yeah, I think you're talking the right one. Yeah, I was thinking of something else.
But I mean, so if you miss one bus, another bus will eventually come through and pick you up.
Yeah, it may not be the right destination for you, but yeah, and it's all according to not only your beliefs, as you know, but frequency. I mean, if they're at the lower vibrational level and they transfer out, then they're going to wind up in a lower vibrational space.
Yeah, but eventually, they'll, as time goes by, it could be millions of years from now, but eventually, as has been planned out, we'll all be together in that happy place. But but how many times they're going to miss the bus, God only knows. But it is. But right now we are in a phase shift. The Earth is separating, from this physical Earth plane. Is separating into a higher frequency Earth plane, and the ones that are matching the frequency of this new Earth plane, they will end up going on that plane. What I have found in phase shifting, through my research, because my camera, it's like a physicist told me one time that the camera only shoots what's there. Mm-hmm. If it's not there, you don't get it. Mm-hmm. It's all photon, right? If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. And so I, like with my picture, I had the physical person maybe sitting on a rock, and their other self standing behind them. And the thing is, if that was not solid enough, the camera could never take that picture of that other person on that other plane. Mm-hmm, right. It has to be solid. And I've known, because I've had a few out-of-body experiences, and the one that kind of showed me what was happening was I had laid down. I was working at my office, and I went home and I laid on the couch and I was watching this TV. But so I wasn't sleeping, but I was just relaxed. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I know, I'm standing, on the sidewalk, outside my house, and it's like, what the heck just happened? As soon as I thought that, boom, I'm back in my body and I'm laying there. And then another time there was this, what's his name? Greg Preston, I think it is.
Not Greg Braden.
No.
Okay.
Preston or Prescott. Anyhow, he had this book called Out of OBE for Dummies. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so what? So let's say 6 easy steps to having an out of body experience. And so anyhow, he had sent me a book, and I did a radio show on him, and I tried it. Mm-hmm. And I was laying on my bed, and I was going through the process, and the next thing I know, this swirly, it was like that show that you used to be on, Stargate, where there was that liquid, spinning liquid, and you could kind of step into it and put you into another world, mm-hmm. like plasma. Anyhow, this huge circle of plasma appeared right next to my bed, and I put my hand in it, and it started sucking my hand in. So I pulled my hand out really fast, and then I put my arm into it, sucked my arm, and then I took it to like 3/4 of my arm, and I stuck in, and it pulled up to like where my shoulder was before I pulled back, right? And because I knew that if I got past my shoulder, it was going to suck my whole body in. And I was afraid, that if it did, then my husband would come and check on me, and, he was going to be a dead body laying in bed, right? So, I didn't want to, cause stress, mm-hmm. despair for my husband. And so anyhow, I did another show with this Greg, and we were talking about the out-of-body experience, and I says, well, it didn't happen for me. I tried it. I must be one of the dummies because I tried it. And he says, well, what did you experience? And I told him, and he says, no, that is this tube. And if you would have stepped into it, it would have taken you to all these different dimensions. And all you would have had to think about was to get back. But I says, no, I was totally physical, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, yeah, you would be. But if you had actually gotten up and grabbed a hold of the doorknob in your bedroom, your hand would have probably went right through.
Right, like astral projection, right?
Right. And so that's when I realized, and then, like I said, and with my pictures, where my camera can actually photograph the person in the other dimension,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be there because camera couldn't take it otherwise,
right.
according to physics. That's when I realized what happens in a phase shift is you actually, the etheric part of your body leaves the physical part, steps into that dimension, and becomes physical again.
Mm-hmm.
That's why ghosts don't know that they're dead, is because they're totally physical. And like with this new earth that people are talking about right now, I think it's more in that etheric stage, and as it's slowly solidifying, and eventually it will solidify enough where that earth will be there. And I think that's what this dizziness a lot of us are experiencing, lightheadedness, our minds wandering, or we put something in one place, we find it someplace else.
Right.
I think that this whole thing is this process that we're going through right now with Mother Earth in this transition stage, and eventually as the Earth solidifies over there, we will be too.
Right.
And we may not even have a memory,
Right. No, I agree with that.
Our old life and the old Earth.
Because we're becoming light beings. Well, technically speaking, we're supposed to go into light body to Merkaba. And I do know that when you were describing some of these frequencies from the vortex, it's like those higher frequencies are descending into the crown chakra, which of course is causing disorientation. But it's also, it's probably fueling up the light body of each individual, I would suspect.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that's and the North Star, of course, is a very high vibrational planet. It's I don't even want to call it a planet, but it's a totally different type of existence, and I think it's something that everybody should be very excited about.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, can you imagine just consciously manifesting at will a destination in a star system, and you're there, and your molecular structure will phase shift accordingly, and you won't have to worry about a spaceship or anything else. I mean, this sounds like science fiction, but this is really what we're talking about here.
Well, when you go into UFO research, you hear stories of these little gray beings taking onto your hand and walking you right through a solid wall.
Right. Yeah.
So isn't that what they're doing, is increasing the vibration of your body so that you are no longer in phase with the solid physical matter, so that you can walk right through it.
Right.
So I think, and Bigfoot may be doing the same thing,
Right. Yeah, I agree.
But you hear stories after stories about how these entities come right through the walls,
Yep. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And of course, everything is energy. Even what appears to be matter is energy. It's a form of energy. So you're still converting the matter through frequency. As long as you hit it with a ping, with a frequency, you're actually changing the dynamic.
Yep.
So that's the keys to the multiverse. Be careful with those.
Yeah.
But and then once again, you have to be evolved at the highest level of consciousness to understand the mechanics behind it, and also be able to navigate without, being controlling and manipulative. And people are stepping up; they're learning and they're evolving, but that's part of the process.
And I think to simplify this for our listeners, because they're going to say, well, how are we going to get there? How are we going to evolve to that point? How are we going to raise our frequency? And I always tell people, it's for things to work, it's simplicity in its most simplistic manner. And in what it is, because if you got to struggle for it, that's not what you're going for.
I agree.
But to lift that vibration, it's so simple. All you have to do is love. Change, get rid of the fear programs, get rid of the worries, get rid of all that tension or the stuff that's causing that tension, and just make it very, very simple, and just start practicing it over and over and over. Kind acts, love, no fear, putting your trust where it belongs.
Right.
and boom, you'll go.
I agree. Well, love is a very high vibration, and of
It
course,
is.
yeah, absolutely. It's not like you have to go like love, love, but literally, it's that unconditional love you were talking about earlier, and I totally resonate with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, you know, and you see this right now, you're seeing that struggle that you were talking about with the old paradigm, trying to
Mhm.
hold back the new paradigm, getting people to, causing the churches to, to create separation, because that's not unconditional love, whether
Mhm.
like being gay. Well, we can't accept you because you're gay. Christ said unconditional,
Mhm.
no
Right.
conditions,
Yeah.
I mean, we can't change the words,
And actually, they have to deprogram themselves because a lot of religions are a trap. I mean, it's really pulling the collective, what I call pulls the hive collective into a belief system that actually restricts them to some degree. So I'm into high alchemy and higher consciousness, and I suspect most people, excuse me, will get to that level of what I call spirituality. It's beyond the fabric of a religion. It's this, it's okay to go into the religions and dive in, but once you get there, you have to navigate out to the next level, which deals with that higher spectrum.
Well, I think that Christ put it quite well when he said that in the end times all things shall be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, I think that he meant that all these lies are going to be exposed.
Right.
And so when people, you know how it is, you hear somebody lying to you and you know it's a lie. After a while, you don't believe them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You start trying to finding your own truths.
Right.
And I think with this wave that's coming through, it's going to open things up where more and more people are going to be able to see past the lies into, this, into what is really around them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, transparency is really big right now, and the veil is thinning, as we've discussed earlier. With that comes everything else.
The other night, Brad and I went outdoors,
Mm-hmm.
because we smoke unconditionally. You got to accept smoking
But you
too.
smoke outside, right?
Yeah, I do. But anyhow, we'd stepped outdoors, to have a cigarette. And Brad said to me, now this was a clear night. Brad says to me, he says, "You hear that?" And I says, "What?" He says, "It sounds like it's pouring down rain." But he says, "It's not raining."
Hmm.
And so I'm looking around because I tell him, I said, "I don't hear anything," and he says, "Well, I'm hearing it." And so I'm looking around, and the next thing I see is this beam of light. I mean, a bright beam, like a solid beam
Mm-hmm.
of light coming from one at the top of the tree, coming straight down that tree, going into the ground. So it
Wow.
was a vertical beam. And then I looked around some more, and a horizontal beam came from the house across the driveway into a tree.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay. So I realized that what it was Brad was picking up audio,
Mm-hmm.
and I was there with the visual. But you see, we had never had any paranormal, or unexplained incidences happen to us here in our new home,
Mm-hmm.
but I realized what it was. It's things now starting to appear,
Mm-hmm.
that people can actually see and hear and smell, because we can't forget, a lot of us pick up things with smell,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
That's pretty wild. So, did you see a craft with that, or was it just a light?
No, I don't think it was, I really don't think it was coming from a UFO. I think
Hmm.
it was just something we were seeing and hearing on the other
Wow.
side of the veil.
Amazing.
And it came, I think that, and I think that's what's happening is this
Mm-hmm.
it's breaking up.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
It's disintegrating.
Yep.
And so, if you're out there looking or be in certain spots, all of a sudden something's being revealed to you. And that goes back to the prophecy that all things shall be revealed.
Right. It's like punching holes through a curtain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting. I heard a
Yeah.
lot of other people were actually claiming they've seen these beams of light coming down.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about that. I mean, haven't done much investigation on it, but I found it very interesting. What's your take on all the noises that people were hearing for a couple of years there that sounded like trumpets?
Well, yeah, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was prophesized too, that we'd be able to hear the trumpets. And see, that's where my mind goes. My husband, now being a male and everything, they kind of think a little bit, they think more left-brained than we do. Well, I shouldn't say that anymore, because I think that we're all starting to kind of find that balance between female and male. So, but anyhow, he still thinks a little differently than me. Not much, but a little bit. Anyhow, he thinks that it's the plates, the tectonic plates, that are rubbing against each other from the shift.
Oh, that's interesting.
And and with that rubbing, it's causing a hum. Then it comes up and it hits that that the atmosphere, because the Earth's got that bubble around it, right? And so he thinks what it does is it goes up, hits that, and then comes back down again. And people are hearing it, and it could be both.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's so many things happening simultaneously. As I've said before, I think it's anything goes to some degree. I think we're going through some real big shifts on a physical and on a structural level and on a multidimensional consciousness level.
Yeah, and that's why it's so very important for all of us to keep our minds open to all the possibilities.
Right.
We can't shut our eyes to anything right now, because it's like you read a book, right? And book, you just you can't wait to get through it because you don't like it, but you started it, right? So, but anyhow, but there'll be, like with me, I'll read the entire book because there might be one word in that book, that resonates with me.
Yep.
And that will open up volumes of other stories.
Yeah. It's like a keyword or something, like a code of some kind that activates. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so so if somebody tells you, like some people come to me and they'll say, well, the world's flat, right? And, of course,
I know people go ballistic when they hear that, but the one thing I will say about it, and obviously, it depends on what dimension you're on. That's all I'll say about it.
Well, that's what, pretty much.
Everything is energy and consciousness, so let's not get too particular about this one, right?
So, that's how I look at it, because they'll say it's flat. Then another person will say, no, it's round. Now I'm kind of thinking it's vortexed,
There's definitely a vortex.
It's like,
to the North and South Pole.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's everybody, if thoughts create your reality,
Yep. That's right.
then what's real to them does not have to be real to us.
Exactly. It is given to you according to your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's this universe's way to somehow they understand how these people's minds work. So so that's what I'm saying. You can't just be. It's like a book. So this what one person says is flat. Well, just because you don't agree with it, you need to read the whole book and hear what they have to say, because there might be something there that resonates.
And also, if and we're all star people, as far as I'm concerned, we're star beings. And we, when you come back with cellular memory from other star systems, and let's just be expansive for a second here, and you come back with a database of other worlds and other universes, and you try to interpolate it onto this world, people will think you're a madman or a mad woman. But literally, it's where they've come from.
Yeah.
And you have to look at that as well. And I think some of these great minds of the past and the illusion of time were actually those beings who brought such a database of a vast multiverse with them that people thought they were insane.
Yeah, and then you also have to include our DNA carries the memories of who we were from the very moment of creation.
Yeah.
And with our DNA opening, coming untwined, becoming activated, those memories are coming back to us.
Absolutely. Cellular recall, I call it. And you know what? With that comes multiple realities, consciousness, star systems, celestial races. We can go on and on about this.
Oh,
you speak my language. I knew this was going to happen.
I know. Isn't this wonderful? Like minds. And I
wish
know
you were
our
my
listeners,
neighbor. Gosh darn it.
And I know our listeners are having fun with it too,
because
otherwise they wouldn't be listening to this show.
It's very enlightening for them. And
it's a lot of people. They're not happy. They get caught up in all this, but. Boy, I'll tell you the way I look at it, we live in such a magical time where, the things are manifesting to us. We're learning about time travel, multiple universes, alternate realities. What I mean, we couldn't have asked for more of a magical time,
Mm-hmm.
to live.
That's really true. It is a blessing. And then what comes to mind too is the spirit and the soul is empty. It needs to be filled with enlightenment and light and consciousness and light conscious energy. And I think that's what's causing a lot of misery for people. I just think they're too stuck in their little linear worlds, and they need to kind of embrace that multidimensional design, because, as you said earlier, the soul sings when you're receiving and experiencing higher energies and higher levels of consciousness.
It really does. But that's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
Is, all these authors out there, people, having, hosting the radio shows and, the movies that's being put out and things.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a service, and more people are awakening, and thank God for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good part of the internet and the radio and the internet is we are reaching everyone around the world in the illusion of space and time. And that's phenomenal. On some level, they'll grasp some part of this.
Well, I always, there's internet radio and there's terrestrial radio.
Mm-hmm.
Terrestrial radio could only put out to an audience that's within their signal. Internet radio goes throughout the world and is on an archive, in archives, so people can listen to it anytime they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one-time shot, and if you're not sitting there listening to it, you don't get to hear it.
Right.
And it's, terrestrial radio to me is, it's almost to the point of being a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yep, absolutely. Well, you sure are a blessing to everybody. And, I can't believe it. Well, we have less than a half an hour left here. I know we were going to get into the red hair giants. We'll slowly get there. And obviously you'll come back. But I want everybody to know how to purchase your books.
Oh, sure. They can purchase my books by going to Amazon and just typing in. Well, I've only got 2 books on Amazon right now. One is Haunted Burlington, Wisconsin. And that's published by History Press. And so anyhow, all you got to do is just type in Haunted Burlington, Wisconsin, or Mary Sutherland. You'll find it. And then the other one that's on Amazon is The Red-Haired Giants. And same thing, just type in that and it'll be right there. And I've got 6 books published, okay? And so if they want to read any of my books, purchase any of my books and have it autographed, a nice little blurb, written in there, they can just go to burlingtonnews.net/books, BOOKS.
Excellent. I say go get an autographed copy, everybody.
Yeah, they're more fun.
They are
more personalized.
Right. You never know. I always tell people when I have some books also, and when I sign them, I'm like, well, someday when I'm dead, you can sell them on eBay or something.
Yeah, and I tell my kids, someday when I'm dead, maybe you'll read one of mine.
Oh, that's so funny. That's great.
But
yeah.
Well, that's one thing, that we have to be very careful of, and I stress to all the authors, make sure that what you put out, is correct.
Right.
Because once word goes into print, it's there,
Mm-hmm.
for hundreds of years,
That's right.
and so, or thousands of years, maybe even, because a lot of people take their books and digitalize them too. So you got to be very careful. And like with my books, I base all my books on historical facts,
Mm-hmm.
and I use references. There's nothing I have in my books that, just kind of comes out of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and I just put it down without backup.
So it's not channeled material, in other words.
No.
Yeah. And that's important because a lot of people would be skeptical about the red-haired giants to some degree, but we have a lot of evidence.
Well, what I did is I wrote my book, or I write all my books like this actually, where it's like cases. I can present my case in court,
Mm-hmm.
With my evidence, with my references, my witnesses and that, and win a court case.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's not hearsay.
Exactly.
But what's interesting about my books is because this Lost in Time and Red-Haired Giants, they're book 1 and book 2 of a 5-book series called In Search of Ancient Man. And what when I'm done with this is I've dug into all this lost information,
Mm-hmm.
not anything that you can find out there on the internet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's I like with red-haired giants. I actually was able to find references of the red-haired giants and living in North America and the Nagas, the serpent people in North
Mm-hmm.
America, and through the Vedic texts in the Mahabharata
Mm-hmm.
and the flying vehicles that they use called vimanas,
Right.
and the War of Atlantis. But the thing was, I could have never done it you know, if I hadn't realized a while back that the Indians were giving names to certain places and like towns and rivers and things. They were using Brahmin names,
Mm-hmm.
ancient Brahmin names. And so by using Brahmin names, in researching, I realized that North America was called Aztalan, and it was called Pushkara.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to find the ancient names of North America, and then by finding the ancient names of North America, then you can find all this lost information through the Vedic texts and different
Mm-hmm.
books around, texts around the world. And so that's where and I love it, because no one else has that type of information.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to, by using the Vedic texts and this lost information, I was able to trace it to the Great War of Atlantis and the destruction of Atlantis and who the survivors were.
Mm-hmm.
And anyhow, in the Vedic text, it talks about Vishnu coming across the sea to the western land of Pushkara or Atlan. I can't remember which name I use, to meet with the survivors of Atlantis,
Mm-hmm.
to help them get back on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
And also there was another reference I found where Krishna was here in North America and help getting them to side with them in the war of
Mm-hmm.
Atlantis.
So you're talking about giants, right? I mean, insofar as the representation, Vishnu being were the red-haired giants blue-skinned?
Now that would be Krishna.
Okay.
And there were blue-skinned people, and they were, I believe, they were more of your Nagas.
Mm-hmm.
But there was the red-haired, there was the red-haired giants as well, because it's like it is now. You have there wasn't just one race that was here. It wasn't just all white people or all red people or all black people. There was a variation of people.
Right.
And some were I have on one of my websites, burlingtonnews.net/skulls, where I actually have pictures of these ancient skulls, and one of them is of a pygmy that they were able to date back to 3 million years old.
Oh, wow.
So not only did we have the red-haired giants, but we had pygmies.
Mm-hmm.
And I had learned about them when I lived in Arizona, because I lived at the base of the Superstition Mountains there, down in Apache Junction. And I had the Phoenician Publishing House. And one of the books that I published was a tourism type book, bi-monthly. And these Indians and old prospectors and that, when they come out of the hills and they tell me these stories, and I'd write them up, and that was a great little magazine for the tourists. But I was always getting stories about how the land at one time was inhabited by these little people. And then these giants came along. And they were the red-haired, white-skinned, and they came along and they were took over that territory where the little people went in or lived. And the little people did is they went inside the mountain, so that to stay away, and not get hurt by these these giants. So that was when and God, I heard that story probably, oh gosh, maybe 22 years ago, something like that, maybe even 25 years ago. And that's where my first interest in these pygmies and these giants was aroused, was right there. But, it's like, who are these pygmies? What giants are these people talking about, know? And so, it, like what we're doing tonight, it flamed my interest enough where I started researching it. Because when I was with the Phoenician Publishing House in Arizona, I was an investigative reporter. So, so with all my investigations, that's how I did it, just like a journalist, would do, you don't see investigative reporting very much on the media today, but a long time ago, reporters actually did do investigations before they printed their stories.
Right. Yes. It's so true, isn't it? It's almost shameful to see what's going on nowadays, but yeah, I applaud you for that. That's that's hard work.
And I encourage all you young listeners, if you come across somebody, that's elderly, for God's sakes, sit down and talk to them, get their stories, because a lot of these stories are oral.
Yep.
And if you don't hear their stories, when they're gone, those stories are gone too. So I mean, I boy, I'll tell you, when I see somebody with, snow on the top of their hair or on their head, I sit down and I say, hey, you got a story to tell me, and then,
couple million, I'm sure.
Yeah, but, it's, and, even if you don't want to research it, this is to the listeners, even if you don't want to be a researcher, or a writer of books, the stories are fun to listen to.
Right. Well, they set your, I want to say, imagination on fire to some degree, and then you go into different avenues. But we have so much of the illusion of history that's been, erased, and so far as we have to recover a lot of data, and this is part of doing that.
And a lot of the different hosts, on the radio shows has a question to ask me, and they say, when do you think that disclosure will be upon us? And I turn around and I stress, I do not believe disclosure is coming from the government. I do not believe it's coming from academia. I believe that disclosure is going to come from the public. Right,
we are the disclosure. Yep, absolutely. Yep. That's what we've been doing in alternative media.
Yeah. Isn't that a wonderful thing? I love it.
It's great.
Alternative media.
I love it too. We're the ones that are actually standing up and doing something. We're moving energy.
And people are listening.
Yep, absolutely they are.
That's and like I said, 7-8 years ago, that wouldn't have been even a possibility.
Very true. Yeah. It's really wild. When you talk about the Vedic texts and the destruction of Atlantis, what did they say destroyed the Atlanteans?
Well, pretty much. Well, there was these not so much. They called them thunderbolts, but you could tell that there was and there was this god weapon that could actually destroy a planet.
Yep.
And just a second, I had to close this door. My dog's starting to bark naturally.
That's okay. I have my dog here too. If you hear slopping water, that's my dog.
I got one of those little wieners, and anytime something makes a little noise, they start barking. But they talked about this this god weapon that could actually destroy the planet, and I think what happened was there was some thermal nuclear. Well, according to the Vedic text, there was like a thermal nuclear war that was going on. It was a world war. And they taught the people of Earth how to use this, how to use weaponry, to actually do their battles.
Right.
And then they gave them, air support. And it talks about, Krishna and Vishnu and them, and how they were battling it out in the skies. And then eventually they used this bomb. And I think that what it did is that there was such tremendous power, it shifted the poles.
Wow. Do
You
you know
know?
what timeline they were talking about?
Well, everything I can see is it had to happen somewhere between 11,000
Right.
BC and 10,500
That's
BC.
what everybody keeps saying, or between 11,000 or 13,000, or maybe
Yeah, it
later.
could be 13,000.
Yeah, I keep getting that window too from everybody I ask. I just
Yeah, but people say, well, they want me to date these giants. Well, when I give 10,500 BC or 11,000, 12, 13,000, that's when that was kind of like the ending part of their life here,
mm-hmm.
um, how long they lived prior to could have been a million years for all I know.
Right.
I don't know,
Exactly.
it, but they, I mean, to develop the technology they had, they had been on this earth plane a long time. And you can also see giant footprints, in the stone, right?
Right.
With dinosaurs. You
Yeah.
can see ancient pottery, with man actually riding a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they they were a very, very old race. They had
Mm-hmm.
been here for a very long time, because you had the Atlanteans. Well, yeah, the Atlanteans, and then you had the Lemurians, you
Mm-hmm.
had the Hyperboreans. You know, each one of them, ruled Earth for a very long time.
Right.
But
Many
like I
races.
said, but I think that the beginning of the end was around 11, 12,000
Mm-hmm. That
BC,
makes about sense.
10,000 BC, and then it's picked up again in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But the ancient texts prior to Egypt. Oh, well, there was this one. I don't know how much time we have
We
left.
have less than 10 minutes, but keep going.
Okay, there's this one geologist. Okay, um, in the 1800s here in North America, most of the settlers actually believed that the land had been settled by the ancient Brahmins. But I'm trying to find this one thing. Now, because of my memory being so bad, I'm almost forgetting what I was looking in this book for. Oh, darn
It'll
it!
come
Don't you
back.
hate that?
It'll come back.
But
People do
oh,
that all the time.
but we have found skulls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Skulls that there's two different types of skulls that we're finding in Wisconsin, showing giants. So there might have been several kinds of giants here. And one of the giants, I think the more taller giants, the bigger giants,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell them from the modern skulls because, for one thing, they're twice the size, but they also have this square, real thick jawline,
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very different from a modern man. And we're also finding elongated skulls here in Wisconsin.
Mm.
And so that
Wow.
kind of points to me that there might have been two different types of giants walking this earth, or walking in North America. And the Cherokee, to back this up, the Cherokee, and this is in my book, the Cherokee said that there was a race of giants, that lived in the mountains, and and they talked back and forth with each other through stone. I kind of think stone might have been a crystal,
Right.
or maybe even cell phones. God only knows. But anyhow, they were able to communicate, and but they were at first they were very kind, to the indigenous people, and taught them things. But then there was something that happened, and they started to abuse the people and rape their women. And, there was a lot of bad things going on. So the Cherokee formed a confederation with a lot of other Indian nations, and to exterminate these giants.
Mm-hmm.
But then once they had them almost exterminated, they realized that by doing so, it left them unprotected from the panther people.
Oh, interesting.
And I can't find anything out there on these panther people.
What are they? Are they shapeshifters? What are they?
I think that these panther people were another set of giants.
Maybe like the cat people they talk about.
Like maybe very possibly like the cat people. Mm-hmm. Because we have found when I was in Brad and I were down in Kentucky, we did find something, and it's in my book as well, a picture of it. But there was this stone on one side. It was a very detailed picture of this like a priestess or priest, and then on the other side of the stone was a very primitive depiction of some sort of a cat.
Oh, interesting.
And so was this, so was it the panther people? Maybe, you never know. I mean, one person, will call a race people panther, another, it could have been the Olmecs. Mm-hmm. It could have been from the land of Sheba, because, Sheba, they were the cat people.
Right. Bast comes to mind too, the Egyptian temple.
Yeah, but I mean, I came across the reference when I was in Kentucky, and I have looked now for, I think, almost 5-6 years trying to find more on this, and I so far have not had any luck whatsoever.
Wow.
But I did when I was in Kentucky. I found, oh my God, this was so wonderful. It was a bust. And it weighed about 40 pounds. But it was the only one of its kind that I know of. I got pictures of it on my website and that. But it's a bust of an ancient serpent priest.
I think I've seen that.
Like a Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
Because if you look at the bust straight on, you can see the cobra coming off the top of it. When you look at it first, it looks just like hair, right? Mm-hmm. But then the second time you look at it, you realize it's not hair at all. It's a headdress, and at the center on top is a cobra, the head of a cobra, and then falling to the right of the bust, going down from the top down to the shoulders. What you would think was hair, if you look at it, it's not. It's scales of a snake. And on the other side, from the top down to the shoulder, is a feather. Nice. So that's a feathered serpent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And, with the cobra on there, that's a feathered serpent, priest king.
Nice.
And the thing is, I don't know how they did it, but they were actually able to, when they did the eyes, you can tell that they were blue. They were light color, like blue. And he had a full mustache. And of course, Indians didn't have facial hair.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I remember seeing that, actually. I think you posted that on your Facebook, didn't you?
And I did. And that's the only statue that I know of that exists. Mm-hmm. And I had made a deal with a guy, that had originally, it had actually been blown out of a cave from these miners and didn't leave a mark on it. And then this one guy, he was a treasure hunter, and he came across it. And I think he talked the guy out of it and gave him like $5-10 for it or whatever. Oh, and he kept it, for all this time until he met me. And then he showed it to me, and I recognized it for what it was. And we had made a deal at that point in time, that I would do all this all this work.
Wow. And Mary, we're getting ready to wrap this up in less than 30 seconds here, but I wanted to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure.
And, okay, and I'll finish that story next time.
Definitely watch it back, without a doubt. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Also, please stay tuned for Dr. J Radio Live coming up next here on the Dark Matter Digital Network. I think we just have a few seconds here, Mary, but you have a cool online gift shop still, right, or no?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so once again, how can people purchase your books?
They can go to burlingtonnews.net/books.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, Solaris.
Thank you.
Bye, listeners.
Bye-bye.
Bye.